Hello, everyone. This is Shereen Brown, spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and we are here for another round of our AFA interviews. We are super excited to be here to be able to talk about some of the advocacy issues that are affecting our military families. As you know, Five and Thrive has 5 focus areas, and today we're going to be talking about childcare. I have a special guest here with me today, and her name is Kayla Corbitt. We're excited to have her, and she is an Army spouse, which means these subject areas are affecting all of our military members across the DoD. She's passionate about what she does, and we want to hear a little bit more from her. So Kayla, please tell us a little bit about your personal experiences as an Army spouse and maybe some of the challenges that you're encountering regarding childcare.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about this a little bit. Kind of at the risk of sounding like a cliche, it all began in Italy. I had just finished my master's program when I had started this military spouse life. And I was very firmly set in career building mode when our first orders had come. And I really did love it. I was thriving, but Italy sounded amazing. So of course. I adjusted to the time lag and started looking into my career yet again. And I immediately noticed while I was there that the only people I saw working were those who had no children, spouses specifically, of course, those without children, or those who had teenagers, so older children who could really, care for themselves. I did eventually find a position. I was severely underemployed, as a lot of us find ourselves in when we're kind of in these remote locations. And so I had created my own volunteer opportunity and would assist families in understanding what the subsidy process looked like for them specifically in childcare, thanks to a little bit of a background in government contracting while I was still in graduate school. So that really is what kind of lit the passion. And I thought, well, this is a fun opportunity from time to time. But it wasn't actually until I had my first child a couple of years later that my underemployment obviously was no longer sustainable. And I just spent the rest of my time there very patiently, still passionately helping families, building resources, speaking with those in charge. What can we do? How can we adjust? How can I help? Yeah, how can I help? That's what I always say. And the intention was that I would just dive headfirst into my career as soon as I got stateside. So everything was fine. And that I did. I had a job lined up. At this point, having helped 50 or so families, I knew the process. And so I was ready. I was pre-approved. I had done interviews. I started at a center. I started working. Everything was falling beautifully together. And then I found out that the center had been mistakenly listed as accepting the military fee assistance, which meant that the thousands I had spent were not going to be reimbursed. So at that point, like a lot of military spouses, just couldn't afford to work anymore. And I had to kind of do a reset. And what that made me think about was, if this could happen to me, who else could this happen to? And should it be this difficult? I mean, here I was, Shereen, an expert at this process, right? Give or take at this point. And I felt like I had failed. And it really made me think that there's probably something different I could do. And that is where Operation Childcare came from. Although we're currently in the Hampton Roads region, it is, as you know, one of the top 5 childcare deserts. And I get most of my motivation through the stories of the people that I'm helping. And surprisingly, some of my favorites are those who don't really use our services, but when they hear about it, they say things like, oh, I wish I had had this when I was a single service member, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I wish this had been around. And what I found, and I'm sure what you find, is that stories really drive change and they really build a community. And that's what I'm really passionate about in this.
Yeah, no, I can definitely feel your pain through your story because we too were stationed in Italy, and I understand just how difficult it can be living there. Some of these locations overseas really make it challenging for a lot of our military spouses to find work as a starter, and then also to find the childcare that they need. You weren't in that position, but it sounds like you just jumped right in and were learning all the different skill sets that were needed in order to begin your advocacy. Little did you know, it sounds like training was happening well before your involvement. So I love the fact that you jumped in and did exactly that. It's just amazing to me. As you talked about your motivation to become an advocate, that part I think resonates with a lot of our spouses. Just the fact that you have that training and that was able to change the way you saw the need for our community. And that's what so many of our spouses do. They're always wanting to be able to help one another. So I think this is great. So let me just ask you, so what can my team and I, as well as this audience, do to support your efforts?
I'm thrilled you asked. And honestly, a lot of this work that you're already doing, giving a platform to these issues, to highlight these issues, because they do all interconnect. They do create what we're living in right now. And so just knowing that someone is working on this actively, that it hasn't been forgotten and pushed to the back, it really does mean a lot. Secondarily, I would say to tell your stories. The audience could tell their stories. And I really want them to do it without shame. You know, childcare access creates this trickle down effect, which I know, not a surprise to you, given Thrive and Thrive. Although lately, I will say the trickle down effect is starting to feel a little bit like a waterfall, if we're being honest. Military families are just so unique in their childcare needs. The traditional 6 to 6 or traditional 7 to 7 care that we find in centers, it just doesn't work for most of us. It doesn't work for what we're doing. And struggling to pay your bills, struggling with food, rent, clothing your children because you can't work due to childcare access, it's not your moral failing. There is not a moral failing there. It's something that a lot of families go through, a lot of both enlisted and officer families. Like everyone is kind of struggling right now. And so I want you to tell us your story. Tell us your story. Let us help empower you. Let us stand with you side by side, help you navigate your solutions, help you bring your solutions. We have a bottoms up approach in everything we do, which, if I'm being honest, I feel like really gives us a leg up here, because every solution that we come out with was given to us by the people that we serve. We ask them what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what are the repercussions, what are the consequences, what is going to happen if this isn't implemented, and we use that to decide what we're going to do next. That is a lot of what drove us to create the nonprofit, the Operation Childcare Project, which does a lot of the advocacy, and it is also rolling out childcare scholarships exclusive to the military community here in the San Antonio region, for those in periods of transition. So it's not always transition in and out of the service, which is how we typically think of transition. But we also have a transition in your life, a new child, a transition between careers, a medical situation has come up and now you need to transition. So any period of transition like that is what we have this nonprofit for. And so we ask for stories. We ask for people to bring us in, to not be ashamed, to be loud about what you need and let people help you.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. You know, again, your organization, Operation Childcare, does so much for our community, and I'm hoping that more of this gets out to a lot of our folks who do need it. The idea that we need to raise our voices just a little bit more to provide feedback and some possible solutions as to how we can make it happen. So leadership is looking down so that they can hear these stories and what they can do about it, especially if it's tied to a particular idea as to how the solution might form. The other thing that you mentioned is people raise their voices about this. We have more of our community partners jumping in with us because the community is suffering from the same lack of services that are out there. So your ability to throw Operation Childcare out there to our members is phenomenal. And thank you for doing that. I just want to say thank you for being that advocate. Thank you for stepping into that experience that you weren't exactly expecting, but your advocacy is strong, your passion is there, and it's going to be able to influence and hopefully motivate and if not inspire other folks to be able to do just the same thing. So thank you for being with us today. We are so grateful and we wish you every best because we want to be able to partner with you as we go forward. So there you have it, everybody. Kayla Corbitt with Operation Childcare. Woohoo!
Woo! Thank you so much, Shireen. This is wonderful.